Okay.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Public Works Committee of the Common Council meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, June 7th. It is 7 o'clock. First item on it's 7:01. First item on the agenda is roll call. Tonight we have with us Tom Livingston, Tom Keegan, Darlene Young, and myself, Barbara Smith. Absent tonight will be Nora Najelski-Eichner and Dominique Johnson. Lisa Shanahan will join us shortly, and I'll make note of that when she does join us. Next item on the agenda is public input. Do we have anyone signed up to speak tonight?
Yes, we have Diane Lauricella. Diane.
Thank you, Larry. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairwoman and staff and council. Diane Lauricella, for the record. I am very interested in discussion items C and D, to no one's surprise, I am sure. The topic of waste management, reduction, and reuse and recycling is near and dear to my heart. It means a lot to me, both as a professional in the business of waste management, but also as an advocate and educator, and volunteering my time in Norwalk for over 20 years related to this topic. For some of you who are newer to the council, with the approval of then Mayor Bill Collins, began the city's Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day as a project at the time of the League of Women Voters. So it goes way back into the 80s. I learned recently that Jessica Palladino was no longer in the position of waste manager and recycling coordinator. So I did look at the description on the website. I believe it's an opportunity to optimize our waste reduction programs. Having her gone is an opportunity to make the public feel more welcome, and groups like mine, the Norwalk Zero Waste Coalition, be welcome and share our ideas, similar to what we attempted to share back in February of 2020, and also throughout the last roughly 7 years. I and others have tried to work with the city of many of the people in the position of Jessica. And so I would like to share with the chairwoman offline my thoughts about the qualities needed in such a public-facing job as the waste management and recycling coordinator. It is a public-facing job, and we hope very soon that of course we find someone, but we want to make sure that the right person who likes to work with the public, is creative in public participation and education, is tapped. With that, I would like to offer my abilities as well as ideas in being included in some part of your selection process. I know you're winding down soon. I guess we'll hear about what's happening with the solicitation for the new position, but I would like to be on the selection committee in some form at some level because of my very unique background in both professional and a citizen who has done a lot for public things. Lastly, I just wanted to ask, my second question is, what is happening with the NIPS money? And NIPS are those little tiny containers of alcohol. The legislature had an agreement. Larry Cafaro was part of it. And there is, I think, thousands of dollars that probably there's going to be 2 checks given to the city, and every town that has liquor stores that sell NIPS. That money is supposed to be used for education programs. And definitely that is something that this city can elevate and optimize. As a member of the statewide Recycle CT board, and tonight I'm not speaking on their behalf, but I wanted you all to know my dedication to statewide education issues related to recycling and waste management. I think that this NIPS money is a great opportunity. So I'd just like to know how much money we've gotten and how much we're expecting. It's called NIPS, N-I-P-S. We don't know if that's an acronym. Maybe Anthony could speak with us about that. But I know that we got a check and we're getting another check soon based upon the legislature's bill this year. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to listening.
Thank you, Ms. Lauricella. Is there anyone else who would like to speak under public comment?
If anyone else would like to speak, please raise your hand electronically now. I do not see anyone else.
Do any members have any correspondence that they'd like to share? Okay, I don't either. So we'll close public input and move on to new business. First item is the approval of the minutes of the Public Works Committee meeting of Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022. Would someone like to move that, please? Mr. Livingston moves the item. I also let the record show, please, that Ms. Shanahan joined us at 7:04. Okay, are there any changes or deletions, anything on the minutes? Okay, I have none. So we'll move to approve the minutes as they are. All in favor, please raise your hand. Ms. Young, oh, Ms. There you are. Okay, opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the minutes pass unanimously. Next item on the agenda, item number 2, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into a subordination agreement and such other documents incidental thereto with National Land Development LLC with respect to the city's general utility easement recorded in volume 7920, page 329 of the Norwalk Land Records, and in connection with National Land Development LLC's ELR application to D. Would someone like to move that, please? Go ahead, Mr. Livingston moves the item. Okay, so this subordination agreement is related to the Sono collection. It is regarding environmental compliance. Anthony, did you want to introduce it, or shall we just turn it over to Darren? You're on mute. You're muted, Anthony.
Wow, that was a real rookie move. I apologize.
2 weeks away, you forgot what to do, right?
I know I lost the Zoom control, so my apologies. So I would like to pass it over to Attorney Callahan, but before I do so, I just wanted to give the committee just a refresher that you may recall this language and a similar item in the past before your committee when we went before the Public Works Committee for the head of harbor, ELR, or also short for environmental land use restriction. So in that particular case, we were involved with a subordination agreement with that owner of that parcel, which ultimately gets filed with Connecticut Deep. And Attorney Callahan could explain it in the more legalities, but from the public works side or from the city side, the reason why we have a vested interest is because we have utilities and infrastructure, city-owned infrastructure on this parcel. So in order to do work in the future or not do work in the future, depending on the types of work, let's say repairing a pipe, upgrading a pipe, there's certain uses that would be prevented and prohibited because of the environmental conditions on the parcel. So Attorney Callahan will explain why we're doing this, and also conversely, if we didn't do this, what would happen. But any interested stakeholder, i.e. a utility company, a municipality who has, let's say Eversource has underground electric lines on the property, we have sanitary sewer, storm drainage. So in the future, if we want to maintain our right to repair such utilities in the event they become damaged or in the disrepair, we can do so by having this agreement in place. But again, the purpose of the ELR is basically to protect the public and minimize the risk of any environmental concerns or hazards that may be underneath asphalt, which is considered a cap, if you will. Again, this is not a landfill, but certain environmental conditions were identified as part of the parcel that I'll defer to Attorney Callahan on. But the reason why we have a vested interest is because we being the city, has utilities on this parcel that we need to maintain in perpetuity or upgrade in the future. And without having this ELR, it would prevent us and put us in a very unfavorable position if we were not a party to this ELR that will get filed from the parcel owner with the Connecticut Deep, and ultimately the commissioner signs off on that. So any interested stakeholder, it's in their best interest to prepare and enter into a subordination agreement with the parcel owner, which at this point, Darren, I think this is a good opportunity for you to maybe give a little bit of a primer of why we need the ELER, and maybe if we didn't have the ELER, what would happen. Thank you. Is Darren on?
It's frozen.
All right.
Looks frozen.
Sorry, I had to scroll to my screen too. Okay, Darren, just
There.
rejoin.
Oh, there he is again.
Sorry, our internet's a bit spotty. So I just had to reset the router. Anthony, that was an excellent explanation. I'm not sure you left a lot for me to add on to, but
Right.
just to, close the loop, so to speak. And I want to know for the record, there was a typo in the authorization. It's my fault. It should be Norwalk Land Development LLC, not National Land Development LLC. The entity's name is Norwalk Land Development, but for all intents and purposes, it's Sono Collections, the mall. And when the mall purchased the property, entered into the LDA with the city, we were fully aware that there was remediation that would be necessary on the site and environmental loose ends that would need to be tied up. And part of that process, now that the site is fully developed, and virtually every square inch is either foundation or sidewalk or asphalt, there's really no direct, other than maybe very, very minimal access to the subsurface conditions from a practical standpoint. Nonetheless, in order to comply with deep regulations, they have one or two options, and the only practical option is an environmental land use restriction. And all of environmental land use restriction is it's a state mechanism. They have them in every state. Connecticut is called ELER, and it's probably similar to every other jurisdiction. But essentially, what it says is that that the applicant, which is Sono Collection, is making an application for jurisdiction oversight by the Department of Energy Environmental.
All right, looks like you froze again, Darren. All right, well, I think we have enough information. Anthony covered everything very clearly, so I think we could go ahead and move forward and vote. Although if anyone has any questions, I'm sure Mr. Carr can answer. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. We've approved this type of thing before. Oh, there you are, Darren.
My apologies, but the actual barrier doesn't have to actually have cement or asphalt on top. It could just be a soil barrier, but many times there is a cement or asphalt barrier. In any event, what the applicant's agreeing to is to not breach that barrier without jurisdictional oversight of DEEP. And part of the application process, any encumbrancer on the property, anyone having a property right interest in the property, would be a mortgagee, a easement holder, or any other encumbrance holder, has to agree to subordinate their land right interest to that of the DEEP's environmental land use restriction, so that they can maintain that jurisdictional oversight. It's absolutely to our benefit to agree to subordinate. Ultimately, they need to do it, and so it's a no-brainer for us. But nonetheless, there's an public approval process, and we're going through that public approval process. But we have provisions that we've put in to protect the city, which they agreed to, and it's the format we've used in prior subordination agreements. So it's pretty much wash, rinse, and repeat from prior things we brought before you. Any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Hopefully my internet will not disrupt again.
Okay, any final questions? All right, all set. Thank you, Darren. We will call for a vote, just noting the typo. It should be Norwalk as opposed to National. We can fix that for the Common Council agenda. All in favor? Raise your hand, please. All right. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that carries unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Darren. All right, moving on.
Thanks, Sarah.
Moving on to item number 3, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a second amendment to the September 8, 2020 agreement between the City of Norwalk and M. Rondano, Inc. for project DRG 2020-1, on-call drainage improvements at various locations for some not to exceed $300,000. Accounts noted. Do you have a motion, please? Ms. Shanahan moves the item. This is previously approved funds for a project regarding connections to catch basins and sanitary sewer. So Anthony, do you want to go ahead and give the details of that?
Absolutely, Madam Chairman. So as you correctly stated, this funding is basically for unforeseen conditions when DPW is executing their drainage improvements contract, which is Rondano Construction, which has been approved prior. We're actively enforcing and also diligently executing any connections that we come across when we're improving our storm sewer system. But any connections of the storm sewer into the sanitary sewer, as soon as they're identified, we quickly address the connections. Again, and this is in an effort to reduce inflow and infiltration and avoid the stormwater from going into the sanitary sewer system, which goes to the plant, which basically takes away the capacity in the existing sanitary sewer mains in the street and ultimately in our plant, right? So you're effectively treating rainwater, and that's not really the water that we want to treat. So we're permitted under our general permit to have these storm connections to the sanitary sewer, but the order that we have with consent order with DEEP and also our prior practice, which is a good one, has always been to whenever we come across these connections to remove them and then reconnect the storm drainage into another portion of the storm drainage system if it is connected to the sanitary sewer. Again, this $300,000 is for various locations. We don't have any locations that we've actively identified where we're working, but this is in the event that we come across those locations in the future that will have the funding in place, again, to disconnect the storm from the sanitary and then make a new connection into the storm sewer system at some point upstream or downstream, whatever makes sense or is possible from a technical standpoint. And again, this is unforeseen and at various locations that we have not yet identified.
Anyone have any questions about that? Comments? All right, let's vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Ms. Young, are you there? Are you voting? She's in. Okay. All right. Opposed? Abstentions? All right. That carries unanimously. Item number 4 is a technical correction of the Common Council action of September 14, 2021, item 7C4, to add accounts designated for the Olmsted Tree and Shrub Care Company, LLC, for the supply and planting of trees and shrubs. Accounts noted. Would someone like to move that, please? Ms. Shanahan moves that. So these are adding funding from economic and community development accounts to this item. Ms. Shanahan, the first account number is yours from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife grant. So that's something to be noted. And, you know, if there's anything additional that you'd like to add, Mr. Carr, to, this is MLK corridor, right? This is all MLK.
Yes, well, actually, Madam Chairman, yes. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife grant, that funding is specifically designated for the Woodward Avenue area, Woodward Park area. That, I believe that was around the amount of $10,000, give or take. The remaining accounts are grant accounts from economic community development, which are going to be used primarily to plant in the South Norwalk area. And in specific, to even dial down a little bit further, to specifically concentrate on the MLK corridor, which if you look at the third number down, that 52 52 4 zeros at the end of it. It's MLK 07. So that's a grant account number. The number below it, the account number below it is GGP. That relates to funding that we were given from the mall, again, to enhance the landscaping and the aesthetics in the South Norwalk area. And then below that, the 09 account is a capital budget account from the city's capital budget. And then that 01 account, which is the second number down, is from the city's operating budget as well. So the 01 and the 09 are economic community development accounts. The 01 is an operating budget account, the 09 is a capital budget account, and the two in between are basically grant accounts. But they all reside with economic community development. This contract has been approved before, and we're merely asking for the additional funding to execute the additional tree plantings in the greater South Norwalk area with the locations as specified earlier.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments about that item? All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. Waiting on Ms. Yep, there you are. Opposed? Abstentions? All righty, that carries unanimously. The next two items, 5 and 6, I can move these. I can move these together. Anthony, do you think? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Number 5, technical correction of the Common Council action dated October 12, 2021, item 7B6A and item 7B6B to add accounts designated for Deering Construction Company, Inc. for project RD 2021-2, concrete curb and sidewalks at various locations, account numbers noted. Item 6, technical correction of the Common Council action dated July 14, 2022, item 7C7A and item 7C7B to add accounts designated for the Grasso Construction Companies, LLC, for project RD 2020-1, concrete curb and sidewalks at various locations, account numbers noted. Will someone please move those items? Mr. Livingston moves them. Okay, so these are, this is a matter of reloading accounts, essentially, adding 2023 accounts in item 4 or 5 and 2022 and 2023 in item 6. So you want to give those details, Anthony?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, and you stated everything. The first contract, if the committee recalls, we have two concrete curb and sidewalk contracts, curb and sidewalk contracts. One is with Deering Construction, the other one's with Grasso Construction. Grasso Construction also has our paving contract, and Rondano has the drainage contract as to date. So item number 5, you'll note that the new account numbers, capital funding, of course, no operating budget. You'll notice the second 2 digits are 23, that's fiscal year 23. And the first 2 digits are 09, which is indicative of a capital project account. So we're basically adding additional FY23 funding to the account so that we could spend it and continue going on with that curb and sidewalk work. Item number 6, Madam Chair and committee, again, we're adding fiscal year 22 accounts as noted by the 3rd and 4th digits in the first several accounts, and then also 23 accounts to continue working with the Grasso contract. Again, both contractors are working in different areas of the city, and we're trying to keep the contractor working until the end of the construction season. And as you know, our budget is effective, capital budget, fiscal year 23 capital budget will be effective July 1st. So we're using some of the fiscal year 22, this current fiscal year money in the Grasso construction contract, and then we're also reloading with fiscal year 23. Whereas, as the Madam Chairwoman had correctly stated, also that we're just using 23 money for the Deering Construction sidewalk and curb contract. That's all I have, Madam Chairman.
Just to be,
Go ahead.
yeah, thanks. Just to be clear, we're not extending these contracts, right? We've already approved the contracts, right? And the fund, the amount.
Correct.
Yeah, this is
That's
just,
correct.
this is just where the money's coming from, right?
Yes.
Correct. You're
Yeah.
gonna see we have the option to extend those, but it's not what is coming in front of you now. We'll come back with that extension.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Welcome.
Anything else?
That's it, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, those 2 items pass unanimously. Item number 7, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Willing, to concur with project authorization letter by the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation for State Project 102-364 West Avenue, Belton Avenue Adaptive Traffic Signal System dated May 24, 2022, and submit a demand deposit payment of $4,345 to the Connecticut Department of Transportation, account noted. Will someone move that item, please? Mr. Keegan moves it. And this is, well, I'm going to turn this over to Anthony. I know Mike is here to give us more specifics about this project. And
Yes, Madam Chair, I will respectfully defer to Mr. Yosak and TMP to provide the committee with the detailed project description and the item before you.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Basically, this project before you is the final stage of our grant we received a few years ago to install adaptive traffic signals on West Avenue, north of in the northern section of West Avenue. Once the state gets a signed copy of this, they'll authorize us to advertise this project for bids and install it. I'd be happy to take any questions you have on the project.
Does anyone have any questions? I think we know the adaptive lighting has been very successful on other parts of West Avenue. It's all good. All right. Oh, Ms. Young, you have a question? Are you ready to vote? You jumping on the vote? I think she's jumping on the vote.
My finger's sticky, so I can't get to it quick enough, and I pressed it too fast trying to be on time.
That's okay. All right, I'm going to call for the vote then. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that motion carries unanimously as well.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, nicely done, committee. We're moving through. Okay, so moving on to information and discussion items. Under discussion, we have a couple project status items. First, the Rowayton Avenue Bridge replacement.
Yes, Madam Chair. So we're pleased to provide this update that the bridge replacement is anticipated to be substantially complete and open to vehicular traffic before the July 4th weekend. The critical path item is currently the delivery of the precast box culvert. So that's going to be, if anybody goes down there, or we'll take pictures and circulate to the committee too. It's basically the big rectangular concrete boxes that are going to convey the water versus what was there previously, which was a round metal pipe and a stone masonry arch. So that was the critical path item. Vanessa and Paul, I know, have worked feverishly with United Concrete to get the culvert as quick and expeditiously as possible. And June 13th is the date. It will take a few days to pick and set the pieces of the box culvert and the other pieces of the foundation off the crane into the brook, if you will, backfill, pave, put the guide rail. Again, once the culvert arrives on site, the rest of the work is going to go very quickly, because in the last prior few weeks, we've been relocating some of the existing utilities. Specifically the water and the sewer. And if you see big pipes on the ground, it's just because we're bypassing water around so the contractor could work and successfully install the water and the sanitary sewer relocations, because where they existed previously, those utilities, they can no longer exist because the new culvert is a little bit wider, a little bit longer. So we're basically moving things around the culvert. In the beginning of the project, we've also relocated some of the existing utility poles, I think two to four, and Vanessa and Paul have those details, but utility companies have done all their work pretty much to date. And now we're just waiting for this delivery, which is expected to be, I believe, next Monday or Tuesday, June 13th. And then the contractor will start work. But we're very hopeful, and barring any unforeseen condition that we possibly can't predict, we're looking forward to opening the bridge up to traffic before the 4th of July weekend. And it's going to look very nice with the Merritt Parkway guide rail. You're going to see kind of the fake false stone. It's not going to be real stone, but it's going to be concrete imprinted with a stone pattern and colored to match what an existing aged masonry stone would look like. Obviously, there'll be new pavement on there in the near future. So we're gonna turn over a product and a bridge that was much better than the condition that we found it prior to the deterioration from Tropical Storm Ida. So it's been almost a year in the making. I believe that our first customer service call received was, I believe, July 14th of 2021. So it just goes to show you it took almost approximately a year. And we've been working on this. And the major, I'm not going to say tie up, but a big piece of the process was the permitting, right? We had to get our Army Corps permit. We had to get our Connecticut Deep permit. We had to get the local permitting. So between the permitting and the fabrication, those are really our big ticket items. And obviously the relocation of the existing utilities too. So the staff did a tremendous job keeping this project on schedule. I know maybe to those on the outside, they might say is a year really on schedule. This is only a small pipe, but it really took a lot of work to get there. So I commend the efforts of the staff. And believe me, once you go down and see it, you'll see why it took us as long as it did. And a few weeks after it passes, I think everyone will appreciate the aesthetics that it's gonna enhance the character and the aesthetics of the neighborhood. So thank you to Vanessa and Paul and all those who worked on it, and obviously for the council's support of approving the funding to do so.
Go ahead, Ms. Shanahan.
I was just going to say thank you to Anthony and Paul and Vanessa and the whole staff, because I drive by there probably once a day, twice a day, and it is a big project. And I appreciate the effort that went in. And Paul has been keeping us updated about why there's been, the slight delays that there've been. So we really appreciate all the effort you guys have made. Thanks so much. And Paul, if that thing comes down, I'd like to see them divert the water and do all that. Like Tom and I were talking about coming down to see it. So let us know so we can see the final product.
Let me know when a good time for you is, and we'll bring you down and give you a tour.
Let us know. Yeah, I echo what Lisa just said. I mean, we really appreciate all the work you put into this, your whole team, Anthony, to get this done. I know, as you said, a year seems like a long time, but I know how big a project that is. I was just looking at it last night and seeing what a big hole there is now. So, yeah, I was going to say what Lisa said. I'd love to see that culvert come in. So.
Absolutely.
Another question is, when do you think you're going to repave, what is it, Woodchuck or Wood Road that's been used as a detour?
I don't have the answer for that, Tom, but the idea is that we're going to do it definitely this year. The way that our schedule was looking is that we're planning to have it milling next Monday. Unfortunately, we have to move that milling because it's still closed. So we cannot do that.
I definitely can't.
So now with that, now we have to get back to our milling schedule. So I do not have an answer. So definitely, hopefully between July and August, but I don't want to compromise yet because I don't have a final answer. But it will come back and we're going to do those two roads for sure.
Great.
We may be able to do some small streets in the area that was planned. But we are still working the schedule now. That was because of the bridge that we have to kick a little bit out. So I don't have a final schedule for the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, it's good to see this project is soon to come to a close. Let's hope Mother Nature is kind to us.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
That was rough. Last year was rough. And that is a good segue, actually, your last question, Tom, into paving curbs and sidewalks project update.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to add for the committee, and I'll circulate a link to everybody afterwards. We, myself, the city engineer and staff have been meeting as we always do, but we wanted to gear our latest effort on modifying what currently has been on the website. I've had conversations with the mayor's office. I know Tom, you and I have had conversations, and Lisa, but just about, where we're paving and kind of the order. And we felt that there could have been an enhancement to basically the documents that were online. Previously, we showed a paving forecast, but that was based on a map and a table. And some of our constituents and the public said, hey, could you take a look at this and maybe make it a little easier to follow? So we heard everybody. We definitely agree that any process could be improved to a reasonable degree. And what you're going to see now on the city website, on the engineering page, and again, I'll circulate this link, but you'll see two maps now, no tables anymore, just maps with colors and a legend. Very easy to follow. You don't need to be an engineer to read it. That's the whole point of why we geared the maps this way. We're going to have a map of what we're proposing for the current calendar year. So if let's say there's 10 areas, we're going to show, area 1 through 10. Each of the different areas are going to have different colors. So area 1 is red, area 2 is blue, so on and so forth. And the number of the area is the order in which the contract is going to work, barring any unforeseen circumstance, weather or a priority shift, utility company work. So we're going to basically lay out, it's online now. We show the locations that will be working for 2022 that are proposed, and then what we're going to be doing in real time or close to real time, at least weekly. We're going to be updating the paving map of a progress map, if you will, to show each, as we do area one, you're going to see which roads we're doing, so that at the end of the year, people, the public, elected officials, anybody can go online and see, okay, DPW proposed to do 25 streets. They did 27, and obviously more is better, right? If it's within our fiscal parameters, but we're going to at least do what we're planning to do, and it'll show for us too our metrics of here's what's proposed and planned versus what was completed, and you'll be able to compare year over year over year what was completed versus planned, which should be pretty close. But again, this situations where they don't line up exactly. And then in the future, I know Vanessa is working with her staff. We will be reposting a 5-year paving forecast. Again, there's a lot of information coming in from First Taxing Water, SNU, a lot of different utility companies. Some of the capital projects have changed. Some new ones are being developed. So we want to make sure that we encapsulate that with the priorities of the city, and that both sync up so that one doesn't hold the other back, and we can be efficient in our work. So there will be a new 5-year paving forecast map. No more tables at all, but that will be uploaded in the next few months. That takes a lot of work, and there's a lot of thought behind it. So I have to respect the process, and I know that Vanessa and her staff have already started working on that. But that's the end goal. But for now, you'll see 2 maps on the website: what's planned for this year and what's been progressing. And there's a date on the map. So I know, I looked today, it was as of 5/20. So you'll know where we stand at what point. And again, as the weeks go on, the goal is to match the completed work with what was planned. So you'll see exactly what we're doing. And if there's any questions, again, why we did extra roads or why we held off on certain roads, then we could pinpoint that and better answer and say, okay, well, Eversource was down that road, or there was an emergency gas leak on that road, so we had to hold off and we missed the season. So we'll be able to explain and walk the committee and the council and the mayor's office through any changes or deviations. But that was the update on our end. Again, we're always looking to improve the process. We're trying to make it easy. Want to be able to look at a map with colors. It's very easy to follow, and I will circulate that link. If not tonight, likely tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I'm looking at the map right now, and it's so much more user-friendly. So I think that our constituents will really be pleased with it. Mr. Livingston, you have a question?
This actually is somewhat related, but I'm just curious as the timing between the paving and when you put curbs and sidewalks in. I just happen to notice you did all these roads in row 8, and a couple of places don't have the curbs yet. But just so I can answer the question, when did the curbs go in? It's a separate process, right?
Right. I'll start.
It depends on the type of curb.
Well, let's assume it's asphalt. Asphalt.
It goes right after, sometimes as part of the punch list, but it's usually it follows. So some of them that we haven't put it back was because originally there was none there.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Because on Rolayton Avenue, I know it looks kind of, there is no curbing of any type.
Well, remember that also we needed sometimes the water to run to the grassy area because it was originally from there. So if we put a curb, we may ended up having the water going to a different place that we don't want it.
Okay.
So usually we put the main reason for the curb is really to direct the water. So
right.
What we are trying is there are some areas that didn't have it and we're not going to get it because it can end up flooding somewhere else.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That is 100% correct, Tom. And asphalt curb, it doesn't go deep into the ground like traditional concrete or granite curb. So the asphalt curb actually sits on top of the asphalt road, which is typically built a little wider. So when they put the curb on top of the asphalt with a curb forming machine, so it's a preformed curb. Sometimes you'll see people hand roll it, but most contractors have a preformed thing where they put the asphalt in the machine and it comes out to look like a finished curb. But that asphalt curb sits on top of the asphalt, so the road tends to be a little bit wider, and then you put your curb in to what you want to get for the desired width, right? Because the curbs could be anywhere from 6 to 8 inches wide. So with a concrete curb and a granite curb, you're digging a trench. Typically, you're digging a trench. You're going 12 inches below the pavement. You got to watch out for tree roots. You got to watch out for other utilities, rock, etc. So with the asphalt curb, like Vanessa's saying, that happens at the end versus concrete and granite and other curb that you're trench excavating for. that would happen first.
Gotcha. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that gets confusing sometimes when constituents ask that question, because you need
I
to know
understand.
if it's asphalt or is it curb? Yeah, granite. So that's good to have all that information. Okay, anything else? Any other questions on that?
Do you guys want to know where we are with the paving, or I don't know, on updates? I have a list of what we have done so far.
Sure.
Or do you guys, or we can relate just to the map that you guys, it is there. I don't know if you want any updates on the sidewalk as well.
Vanessa, I just have to say the word hockey and you can answer. You decide whether you want to talk
I'm
about it
getting
or not.
nervous.
I think
that too. I'm thinking too.
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
If we're getting the map, we'll be able to see it, right?
Yeah. It's right on the website. It's easy to find. All right, so let's move on to tree operations and programming.
Okay, Madam Chair. So we're very pleased to announce through the hard work of engineering and operations, we'd like to focus on the tree plantings. Again, kudos to Vanessa and Paul, Chris, everybody who's involved and touches any facet of the tree planting. I know we work a lot with Councilman Shanahan, a lot of the constituents who want to see the trees in. We hear, I think it's very visible that the department is very responsive to the request and the planning. We've been coordinating with CMP. That's been a joint venture, or I should even say economic community development. But we wanted to just give a little snapshot, and I have some metrics in front of me that we have, just to give a few of the numbers, we have planted approximately 168 trees will be planted. There's a few that are remaining that have to get done that I know Paul could add to, but by the completion of spring of 2022, because the planting season is twice a year, spring/summer, depending on if you have a mild summer, and then also the fall, right? So there's 2 times you could plant in a year. But in the spring of 2022, we have a few more plantings to place in over the next week or two. But once that's complete, we'll have 168 trees planted for the spring of 2022. This year's fall season of 2022, Paul has an idea of where some are going. We're getting a lot of requests, but that number is still to be determined. Precise and various locations will be firmed up over the next few months, but we don't have a planting schedule yet for the fall. Once we do, we'll report that to the committee over the next few months under this item. But I also wanted to note too, that we did plant 75 in the fall of 2021 amongst various locations, another 18 on Wilton Avenue in the fall of 2021. So what I wanted to add was that in the fall of 2021, we also planted 93 trees. So between fall of 2021, if you add that 93 to the 168, you get 261 trees planted from the fall of 2021 to the completion of this spring 2022 planting season. So I'm very impressed. I know that number has exponentially swelled up with the additional funding and the resources and the grants that we've been getting. And I know a lot of the hard work of the staff. So just again, 261 trees will be planted between fall of 2021 and the completion of the spring planting season of 2022. That's not going to include what's being planted in the fall, which that number is going to far surpass 300 because we plan on planting more than 39 trees. So we may finish somewhere in the realm of 300 to 400 trees planted from fall of 2021 to fall of 2022. So I would say that's very impressive. And I haven't worked for a municipality where we planted that many trees in a year. So kudos to everybody on the call and especially the staff. Thank you very much for that.
Agreed. Well done.
Yeah, hopefully you have that problem every year, so to speak. Anthony, I have to ask, how many trees were taken out?
I have that in the memo. I didn't pull that number, Tom. I know that we're butting up to the amount of trees that we removed versus what we're planting. I know Paul may have that figure. We spoke earlier today, Vanessa, myself, and Paul, and I know it's going to be about even in the fall season, right, Paul? Do you have that number?
When I had talked with Chris a week or so ago, I thought he had mentioned something in the neighborhood for the year of about 240.
Right.
So
Yes.
with the 261 trees within the year, we've now exceeded what we've removed. We've planted more than we've taken out, which was, I know, a major goal.
Definitely. It's great.
Thank you, Paul. I remember it was close to 240 and Councilman Livingston, if you go past and project out through the fall, and we do hit that closer to 400 range. I mean, you're looking at it 1.5 for every one tree removed, we planted 1.5. I mean, that's our goal. Anything more than 1 is what we're striving for, although the metric's not set. But if we could live in that 1 to 2 range, based on money, resources, timing, planting seasons, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's a very good start.
And I want to just add one thing to this too. These numbers do not include what Parks and Rec has done. And it also does not include what the Norwalk Tree Alliance has done, nor the River Watershed or the Land Trust. So all those trees would be added to this in addition. So it would definitely be, like Anthony was saying, 1.5 to 2.
And we'll get those figures for everybody once we have the tree planting schedule at least finalized, maybe not the trees planted, but once we have the fall 2022 schedule, we'll go back and we'll add in said numbers that Mr. Sotnick just gave us on. So we have an accurate picture of what we planted, because we don't want to shortchange ourselves either. And Paul will provide that probably sometime. Once we finalize that list in the next few months, we'll just report everything together. We'll put it on Zoom, assuming that we're still on Zoom. We'll share our screen. And we'll just do a little breakdown of the locations, or we can go in our GIS. I mean, there's a lot of different things we can do, but we're definitely ahead of the curve for the metrics. And you're right, Paul, if we don't include those numbers, then we're shortchanging ourselves to a point.
Okay, Tom, just to answer your question, the removals does include the parks, the schools, and public property. So the 240 removals is the 240 removals for the whole entire city.
Right.
We will plant, as a Department of Public Works, more than 240 trees, like Paul just said, the 261. And that would be the first time ever that that's happened. I mean, when I started, we had a $250,000 tree removal budget. That's how many trees were being removed. So through education and through outreach and, you know, just having people that care, we're on a path that's, you know, the right way.
That's terrific.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. It's really
Thank
good.
you, Chris.
Really good news. Okay, on to monthly solid waste report for March and April.
Okay, Madam Chair. So comparing prior numbers where we were the same time last year, we'll just use April 21 as a baseline. Our MSW, aka garbage, from what was taken out, curbside, which is just collected along the curb, and traditional garbage routes, we're down 3.6% from the same time last year. And the total monthly MSW out, which is the sum of what's collected along the curb, plus what people drop off at the transfer station, we're actually down 15% approximately from the same time last year. Recycling, overall, we're down about 8% from the same time last year. So, you know, it was interesting watching the numbers, and it depends how much of a numbers person you are, may not be, but what it tells us qualitatively is that there's some normalcy, maybe there's a new norm, but the effects of the pandemic are at least waning to a degree where people are not home as much. Either that, or they've learned to stay home, but use a lot less garbage. I'm thinking it's more towards the former and the first, that people are back to work again, or have different jobs or doing different things, but they're not generating as much waste at the same point last year. So we are returning from a waste management standpoint, we are returning back to normal conditions, which I think is a good thing for everybody, because there's a lot of other things that are likely returning to normal as well. But just sticking to the waste management, all the numbers are down, as I've stated, anywhere from 3.5% to 15% from where we were April of 2021. So that's a good thing. You know, people always told me when I went to Public Works, you know, there's things that you have to do and things that you should watch. And one of the things is garbage. People are very funny about their garbage. Garbage tells a story. And again, people want things out on the curb and gone when they wake up the next day. And there's something to be said for that. So garbage and MSW, you know, in the Public Works world is a very personal thing for people, because it's generated on a personal level. And it's very indicative of our behavior at home and you know, from our businesses. So seeing these numbers does tell a bit of a story that we're returning to some normalcy. And that's different for everybody, of course.
Any questions
That's
there?
all.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have less people living in my house now, and we're using a lot less, you know, we're putting a lot less out on the curb because, you know, we had a house full during COVID and during the
Right.
shutdown.
Oh, I know.
Everyone's gone back to their own homes and
Yeah.
that
You
was-
don't gotta
I
go
think
home,
that's
but you can't
really
stay
accurate.
here.
It's really
Yep.
accurate, yeah. So, okay, let's move on to food scrap drop-off report.
All right, Madam Chair. So the last item is always a very positive item to report on, and it's very coincidental that where we finished at the end of fiscal year 21, which is July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, where we had finished as far as a ratio of how much food scrap was being picked up or collected and disposed of from the transfer station and Rowayton Community Center. we ended that fiscal year with a 65% to 35% split. So 65% of the food scrap volume was collected and disposed of from Rowayton. 35% was collected and disposed of from the transfer station. Coincidentally, where we are fiscal year 2022, which as we're approaching the end in several 2-3 weeks, we're at that same percentage. So it shows that the Rowayton Community Center is still maintaining 2/3 and generating 2/3 of the food scrap volume. It shows that the transfer station is generating basically 1/3. And this segues into now that the operating budget will be effective, the fiscal year 23 operating budget will be effective July 1st, 2022, this year, we could begin discussing and setting up and standing up a Cranberry site for the food scrap drop off. Because I'm very curious to see how that 65-35 now splits even into a third location with Cranberry, because I think the department feels the same way. And speaking with the elected officials and other people who are in this business, that Cranberry location is a missing link, and it's going to share a lot. That's the conduit between the Rowayton and transfer station. And I know some people, Chairwoman, you said it's a little bit sometimes discouraging having to drive into the car and go and it to the transfer station versus being able to go to Cranberry, right? You might be a little bit more motivated.
We're there sometimes 3-4 times a week with the dog, so it's easy. And I think a lot of people have a habit of going to that park over and over again. So it'll be a lot easier than taking the trip down to the transfer station. So,
absolutely. So
we're looking forward to that up here.
Yes, we will be working on that in the next few weeks. Myself, Mr. Torrey, and the new waste recycling programs manager. I would like them to enter the city and be employed and have them on the team before we advance that initiative, because they're going to be a key component in standing up that third location. And just for the numbers, Madam Chair, we've removed approximately 232,000 pounds, or almost 250,000 pounds, from the traditional MSW waste stream with the food scraps. Again, that's almost 250,000 tons. It was actually almost 120 tons have been diverted from the inception of this program to date, which again is I think a very, very good mark. It's only going to grow with the third location. We're certainly not going to go backwards. And I think 250,000 pounds is when you're paying $95 a ton, and we removed almost 120 tons, you could do the math. Yes, there is the argument to be made that right now the food composting is a little bit more on the expensive side, just because it's I'm not going to say a newer thing, but some communities are just pioneering it for the first time, like us. Some have been doing it for a few years, like Scarsdale. But nonetheless, we have seen the prices start to come down, and we're hoping for that pinch point where the price to collect and dispose of the food waste is equal to or even less than hauling the garbage, because garbage is only going up and we're seeing the food scrapping starting to go down. So we're hoping the 2 points will converge in the future.
Okay.
Hey, I'm sorry, at the risk of, we're in 7:53. I did see that Stamford has some sort of food scrap waste composter. I don't know exactly what it is. Do you know?
I've heard they do. I'll be truthful, Councilman. I don't know. I can't speak to it. I don't know if Chris or anybody else could speak to it. I heard of it. I read it on online, but I couldn't speak to the technology or how it works, or even the cost, which is something that we'd first and foremost be very interested in.
Maybe that's something a new person can look at when he or she gets here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay, just one final thing, because we did make the announcement last month that you would be, Anthony, you'd be presenting the flood mitigation at the May 24 council meeting, because you had to be out of town. That was moved to the June 14th meeting. So, just to put it out there publicly that the flood mitigation projects that are going on currently, there will be an update on that, as well as the Ponus area and New Canaan Avenue area presentation with Woodward.
Yes, Madam Chair. DPW will provide, there'll be 2 presentations. DPW will provide a flood mitigation status on all of the major drainage projects, with the exception of New Canaan Ponus Avenue, which will be addressed by the consulting engineer, Woodard and Curran PAPC. So when everybody sees that, DPW will have the first presentation and explain everything but the New Canaan Ponus Avenue, and then we'll turn it over to Woodard and Curran to have a more focused, centralized presentation just on New Canaan Ponus Avenue.
Great. Anything else? All right, motion. Ms. Shanahan makes a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Okay, we are adjourned. All right, enjoy your game.
Let's go
Okay.
Rangers.
Go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers. Take care, everybody. Thank
Good
you,
night,
Madam Chair.
everybody.
Thank you,
Good night.
staff.
Take
Thank
care.
you.